Hey, what's going on guys? Caleb Wisted here, and today I'm going to show you how to fillet a lake trout. Now, lake trout can be a bit of a challenge because they have soft flesh and they're also a bit larger fish. So some people are intimidated by lake trout. I'm going to make sure that you know everything you need to know by the end of this video so you can get a nice clean fillet off any lake trout you catch. I'm going to show you two methods. The first one is the way I did it for years. It works great. It's very simple. But I'm also going to show you more of a commercial style fillet. I kind of learned it from watching how commercial fishermen fillet their fish, and it works well with either a conventional or an electric knife. So let's get started. How to fillet a lake trout. Alright guys, first step to filleting any fish, including a lake trout, is to make sure you bleed it and ice it. So I cut the gills right here and lay this fish in the water, let it bleed out, and then put it on ice. I have a whole video on fish care. I'll leave a little card up here and a link in the description so you can watch that video. Shows you how to do all that stuff. So this fish will not have any blood in it when I fillet it, which is super nice and clean. Alright, so let's get started on method number one here. We're just going to remove the fillet, leave the ribs on the carcass in this method, and we're going to start with our first cut, which is right behind the gill right here, and we're going to kind of curve it up to get this meat up into the head like this. Then we're just going to cut down to the backbone. You'll feel the backbone right here when you hit that, and then you're going to turn your knife parallel with the fish, and you're just going to cut along the top of that backbone, just on this side of the backbone, all the way down the fish. You only need to cut in right now about an inch and a half deep, just kind of making strokes with your knife. And right about when you get to pretty much the front of the anal fin right here, you can push your knife right through, all the way through, pop it out the other side, and then you can simply run it all the way out and cut right through the tail right there. Now you're just going to come back to the head here and just start making short strokes along here, and then I kind of come back the other way and just cut through that meat that is along these bones. These are all bones here that are attached to the backbone, so you're just cutting that meat off that bone. And then you're going to run into pin bones. Right here on the ribs, there's a row of pin bones that you're going to have to cut right through. And you may have to make a few strokes with the knife to get through those. You can hear my knife kind of popping through those bones, just like that. But again, we don't want to do a lot of pulling on the meat on a trout because they're so soft. So you mostly want to be slicing, not pulling. And now we're on the ribs, so we're just going to follow those ribs. They kind of angle down here at the end, so you want to get some of that meat off the ribs if you can, just like that. There we go. Try not to cut into the guts too much. And now we can slice off that whole slab of meat right there, just like that. So there's a really nice chunk of meat. If you want to transport this, most states it is required that you leave the skin on, so you could do it just like this, but we're also going to show you how to skin it here and take the pin bones out as well. Alright, now how I do this is I reverse the fish, I turn it around so the back is facing me again, and again I'm just going to cut down, same cuts, basically just go along the top of the backbone on the other side this time, like so. Kind of keeping my hand on here just to keep the fish straight. Then again we pop through right in front of that anal fin and cut right out through the tail just like that. Now we're going to separate all that meat from the carcass here. Just sliding our knife through those pin bones. Not pulling too much on that meat, because again, trout meat is super delicate, so you don't want to do a lot of pulling. You want to do mostly cutting. All the way across the ribs, and cut that fillet right off the fish, like so. So now we got two nice fillets. One thing you can do, especially on a trout this size, is you can keep this belly meat actually right here. It's a pretty good chunk of meat, so I just cut it off right in front of the pelvic fins here. There's a bone, and you kind of follow that bone down. And actually that's a pretty good chunk of meat, especially if you're going to smoke the fish. You can see how thick that is, and that's some really nice fatty, juicy meat. So I like to keep the bellies off these bigger lake trout as well. Alright guys, anytime I'm skinning a fish, I always bring it to the edge of the table so I can get my knife below the table and make a nice clean cut level with the table. Now on a trout, I'm going to start right here, start just ahead of a little chunk of meat that I can kind of grab with my finger. And I'm going to start just slicing very gently, moving towards the head of the fish. And what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to try and cut all the way down to the skin. I'm going to leave just a little bit, maybe an 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch of meat on the skin if possible. And I'll show you why here in a second. Takes a little practice to get the hang of it, but I'm just cutting a little bit shallow. And the reason is, as you can see here now, when I show you the skin, all this red stuff is fatty, kind of muddy tasting bloodline. And I'm leaving that with the skin rather than taking it with the fillet. That's going to add a lot when you cook this fish. It's not going to have that kind of fishy, muddy flavor. That's staying with the skin. And when I flip this fillet over, you can see there's just a tiny bit left right here, and you can cut that out real easily if you want to. Okay, we're going to handle this thing really gently because, again, this trout, even though I've been really careful, still wants to pull apart. So you really got to treat it with care here. Now we're going to be removing the pin bones from this next. That's the only thing we have left to do. And the pin bones run right here along the center of the fish. You can actually see they're catching when I run my finger along there, and they kind of run at an angle this way. So our knife is going to be moving towards the back of the fish on our first cut. So we're going to follow this row of bones. We're going to start on the back side of the fish, and we're going to cut on that side of this row of bones. So we can start, they end right about in here, right about where we pushed our knife through. So we can find the end there, and we just start sliding our knife along the top edge where we feel those bones, get a knife cut started, and then we're just going to follow the edge of those bones down and out. See how they kind of angle back a little bit on a trout, especially more so than a walleye or a panfish. They almost go straight down on a walleye or a panfish, but on a trout they have a slight angle towards the back of the fish. So we're going to cut down. Now you can see we've got just the bones right here. Now we're going to move to the other side of the trout, the belly side, and we're simply going to slice those bones off, that little row of bones. And you don't need to take a lot of meat here. You really can just take a slice. You don't lose hardly anything. Just like so. Again, being very gentle with the meat so we aren't tearing it. Cut it off right there. Clean up this real thin belly here a little bit. And there you have a nice whole trout fillet. Boneless, skinless. You can put that on the grill, you can bake it, you can cut it into pieces, fry it up, whatever you want to do with it. And that's a really nice piece of lake trout. Now, we'll do the same thing with the other side. I'm not going to show you that. But now let's move on to method number 2. All right, guys, so method number 2 is going to be more of a commercial style fillet process. And I'm going to use my 9-inch tapered flex for this. I'll leave links in the description for these knives. They're both really good knives. This is the 7-inch tapered, this is the 9. I like the 9 for this method because I'm going to be cutting all the way through the fish. And I'll show you the electric on the next side here. But basically, for this method, what we're going to actually do is we're going to start right behind the pectoral fins here. We're going to turn the fish on its belly, and I'm going to grab the fins right here. I'm actually just going to start by slicing the belly right off the fish. Just right down, not deep, just a slice of it here. Just like so. Now, what that's going to allow to happen is the guts will be able to kind of fall down and out. So when I make this first initial cut, I'm not cutting into the guts at all because they're kind of flopped out and a little bit lower. here. So we're going to take the whole fillet off this fish with just the knife here. We're going to slice all the way down, and again it kind of pushes those guts down so we don't get in the way. So we're going to turn the knife and we're going to cut right through the ribs all the way down the fish. This is why I like that longer knife. Nice sharp heavy knife right down all the way to the tail, like so. Now that gives us a nice, clean, super easy fillet that we can take home if we're on a trip. Skin's still on it, and we can clean that up later. Again, I'll show you how to clean this up as well, but that's super quick, super easy. Now let's flip it over and do the other side with the electric here. So this is the Bubba lithium ion cordless, really nice fillet knife. I'll leave a link in the description for this as well, but basically we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut straight down here, turn the knife all the way down to the backbone, and just take that fillet right off the fish. All the way down through the tail like so. There you go. Nice clean fillet. Didn't get any guts on it because we did that little move with the opening the guts up to let them kind of fall out. Now we can throw this. All right, now when we do it this way, we obviously have to remove the ribs, right? So when we remove the ribs, I like to leave the skin on. Makes it a little bit easier. And the ribs are just basically from here this way. Now we also have the pin bones here that we're gonna have to remove, but first let's take out the ribs. So we're just gonna slide our knife under the top of those ribs, and we're gonna work it outwards, just basically peeling those ribs off of the meat. Just barely slicing under them. You don't need to take much meat at all. And see, it leaves it nice and clean. I love this method because it just allows you to work with this delicate trout much easier without tearing it up. Okay, there's the ribs. Remove those. I'm going to straighten this belly out just a little bit. Okay, that's a beautiful looking fillet, right? So now we can skin it here. The 9-inch flex works really well for skinning as well. It just has a nice long blade so you can work with it really easily. And again, I'm going to try to not go all the way down to the skin. So just skinning a little bit on the shallow side. Really sawing at that meat, just moving that knife back and forth with even strokes, letting the knife do the work, just like that. And there, we just left most of that dark stuff on the skin. We got a little bit here we'll want to trim up, but you can see most of it is there. That kind of shows you what it would look like if we didn't get all that here on most of that fillet. So see how much cleaner that is? Look at that. There's no separation, just super clean. And now I'm going to go back to my 7-inch flex. I like a little bit smaller knife for removing these pin bones. I can feel them right here. Just going to get my knife on the back side of them, work it down just like we did in the last one. Right to there, separate that top piece, that's all boneless now. Now we come in on the other side of these bones and just slice them off the fillet like so. Now I have another video where I show you how to remove these pin bones actually with a tweezers while leaving the fillet intact, which leaves even a really nicer looking fillet than this. Super clean, one piece, no line in it. So I'll leave a link in the description for that video as well. But here's a little bit of that top fin. We'll trim that off. And now we have about as clean of a lake trout fillet as you can get right there. That's why I like this method. It's easier on the meat. There's not as much tearing, and it leaves a nice clean fillet. So that's what we would do with the other side as well, and we would have a nice clean filleted lake trout. Well, there you have it. hopefully that helps you fillet your next lake trout and do a great job at it. Now make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything coming up. I've got a lot more videos on the channel already like this one and tons more on the way. So also, if you're going to purchase any of these knives, I would really appreciate it if you click the links below in the description. That helps this channel out a ton as well. I'll leave you another video right here, guys. Thanks for watching. Get hooked up.